Dragon Emperor's Son Chapter 391 to Chapter 400. Although he couldn't believe it, the earring in his hand might be able to confirm his guess. After a while, Chifeng and the others came slowly. David's speed was too fast, they couldn't keep up. "Mr. Chen, is this place?" Chifeng looked at the newly found soil on the ground and seemed to think of something. "Send someone to dig all here." David did not answer Chifeng, but asked Chifeng to send someone to dig it out. Soon, Chifeng sent people to start digging up, and then the bodies of the girls were dug out. There are scars all over the bodies of these girls, and they look terrible. Wow! Sonia couldn't take it anymore, she vomited out in one mouthful. And everyone else has anger in their eyes, and their teeth are rattling. This Zhang Zhengzhong, it's too cheap to kill him. Gulinger's eyes were red, and she gritted her teeth. Lin Tianhu, an underground emperor who kills without blinking an eye, sees this scene, his eyes are red, and his stomach is turned upside down. Without saying a word, David's killing intent rose to the sky, his eyes were extremely piercing. "Mr. Chen, although Zhang Zhengzhong is ruthless, he has never heard of him doing this for so many years. This may be done by someone else." Chifeng whispered to David. It's not that Chifeng excuses Zhang Zhengzhong. These girls are all arrested by Zhang Zhengzhong, and it is impossible to excuse Zhang Zhengzhong. It's just that Chifeng feels such a cruel method and doesn't want Zhang Zhengzhong to do it. After Chifeng finished speaking, a person flashed in David's mind instantly, that is, Master Bohuo, who looked at the kind-hearted eyes. "Organize the remains of these girls and bury them properly." After David finished speaking, he raised his head and looked at the air. Suddenly, he pointed a finger, and a golden light shot out directly, and then disappeared instantly in the air. The black cloud of grievances gathered in the air instantly dissipated under the golden light, and finally disappeared without a trace. For David, these grievances are an excellent training resource, but David will not absorb these grievances, he just dispels them so that these girls can reincarnate. Back at the villa, David's face was always ugly, while Sonia was vomiting all the time, and Gulinger persuaded her. About a few hours later, the entire Zhang family was searched, and the last pile of contract documents, as well as several large bags of medicinal materials, were placed in front of David. Chifeng walked in with a lot of women's underwear and said to David, "Mr. Chen, these were found in one room. I checked the surveillance, and that room is where the Master Bohuo lives. This handsome fellow is simply inferior to a beast." When Lin Tianhu heard this, his teeth itched with anger. David was not surprised, he seemed to have guessed it. Suanya Valley in the southwest, David's eyes narrowed slightly, and he looked in the direction of the southwest. "I will make you pay the price." "Mr. Chen, these are some business family contracts under the Zhang family's name." Chifeng handed the document to David and said. David didn't even look at it and said, "I'll leave it to you to deal with it. What I want is what's in that bag." Chifeng put down the documents, then opened one of the bags and said, "Mr. Chen, here are some precious medicinal materials, but they are all spirit medicines that are more than 100 years old." Needless to say, Chifeng, David has long known, such a strong spiritual energy, David has long felt. But what makes David strange is that the Zhang family has so many medicinal materials over 100 years old. You must know that David has not found so many medicinal materials of 100 years old in Yuncheng, which is known as the capital of medicine. In the entire Jiangbei province, Yuncheng has the largest base of medicinal materials. Could it be that these medicinal materials from the Zhang family were not purchased from Yuncheng? How can the Zhang family have so many 100-year-old medicines? I'm afraid these medicines are more than Yuncheng. David expressed his doubts. Mr. Chen didn't know that these medicinal materials were purchased by the Zhang family from the Yaoang mansion. I found out that the contract between the Zhang family and Yaoang's mansion was not purchased from Yuncheng. Moreover, the century-old medicinal materials that entered Yuncheng generally require after passing through the hands of the Yaoang mansion, those who are in good condition will be left behind by the Yaoang Mansion. Qi Feng explained to David. Drug King's Mansion. David was stunned, he really hadn't heard of it. After all, David stepped into this level only 2 months ago, he was just an ordinary person before, so he couldn't get in touch with many things. This Yaoangfu is located in Tianfeng Town, which is under the jurisdiction of the provincial capital. It is known as a small medicine capital. The Yaoangfu is mainly focused on alchemy. Many people in the martial arts circle in the provincial capital have almost bought their medicines, but from this is the first time I heard that Yaoangfu purchases medicinal materials. After all, these medicinal materials are carefully selected and used by Yaoangfu, and they will not be easily shot. Hearing Qi Feng's explanation, David's heart became extremely excited. He didn't expect that there was such a place in Jiangbei. No wonder these century-old herbs were all top grade, they had already been selected. Above the arena, did the green medicine pill that Zhang Zhengzhong eat be purchased from this medicine palace? At this time, David remembered the bursting pill that Zhang Zhengzhong ate. Qi Feng shook his head, the rules of the Yaoang Mansion are very strict. They will not refine and sell this kind of medicinal pill. They only sell ordinary pills for washing the marrow, strengthening the bones, and strengthening the body. To sell this kind of elixir that improves strength in a short time at will, I am afraid that the entire martial arts world will be in chaos. David nodded and immediately understood. It seems that the Medicine King's Mansion not only can refine medicine pills, but also has deep research on doing business. If they sell all kinds of medicine pills at will, causing chaos in the entire martial arts world, then for Medicine King Valley, all harm and no benefit. It is precisely because of the rules of the Yaoangfu that Zhang Zhengzhong will spare no expense, and Master Bohuo invited from Suanya Valley in the southwest to refine the life-extending pill. Looks like there's a chance, I'm going to take a walk around the medicine palace. David's eyes flashed with excitement. If he could take the Medicine King's mansion as his own, wouldn't he be able to get a lot of resources instantly? However, David can't do it by force. He can talk to the Yaoangfu and spend money to buy their medicinal materials. Since the Zhang family can buy them, then he can too. Mr. Chen, the palace master of the Palace of the King of Medicine is very strange, and it is easy to meet strangers, and there is a big family in Kyoto behind this Palace of Medicine. Go somewhere, otherwise, it is impossible to collect so many precious medicinal materials with just one Medicine King's mansion. However, the Zhang family and the Yaoang mansion signed a large order of 10 billion. The medicinal materials here are only part of it. If Mr. Chen needs medicinal materials, we can continue to cooperate with the Yaoang mansion in the name of the Zhang family, but this follow-up fund. Qi Feng said with some embarrassment. 10 billions of funds are really astronomical for Qi Fengtang, Qi Feng simply can't spend so much money. You send someone to follow the Yaoang mansion to continue talking in the name of the Zhang family. You don't need to worry about the issue of funds. I'll find a way. David will not give up so many precious medicinal materials because of money, these are his precious cultivation resources. Now there is a lack of spiritual energy in nature, as David's strength is getting stronger and stronger, this thin spiritual energy can no longer support David's cultivation, so David has to find another way. This way of cultivating immortals is indeed 100 times stronger than practicing martial arts, but there is one thing, it is too expensive. Qi Feng left, David looked at the bags of 100-year-old medicinal herbs and the 1000-year-old ginseng in front of him. He was a little excited. With these things, maybe he could break through the Qi training period and enter the foundation building period. Although it is only a level upgrade, the strength will increase exponentially. The Qi refining stage and the foundation building stage can be described as the difference between cloud and mud. Only when you step into the foundation building stage can you become a true immortal cultivator, which is what the world calls an immortal. Looks like I'm going to try to break through. David thought about it, got up and called Lin Tianhu. Breaking through the foundation building period was not something that could be accomplished in 1 hour or 3, but it would take several days. And he must not be disturbed in the past few days. These days are also his most vulnerable time. If an enemy comes to his door, David is afraid that he will have no power to fight back, so he has to explain Lin Tianhu to protect himself. Mr. Chen, don't worry, even if I lose Lin Tianhu's life, I won't allow others to disturb you. Lin Tianhu said firmly. If you have any trouble, you can ask Shifeng for help, I'll ask you for a few days. David patted Lin Tianhu on the shoulder. After explaining to Lin Tianhu, David called Sonia and asked her to play with Gu Linger in the provincial capital these days. He had something to do. Sonia was very sensible and didn't ask much, just told David to pay attention to safety. After explaining everything, David locked himself in the room. A faint flame emerged from his hands, and he waved it suddenly. The flame wrapped the medicinal materials. Start breaking out. It took a day and a night to refine these medicinal materials into a spirit-gathering pill. David did not hesitate at all. After swallowing it, he felt the spiritual energy in his body rushing out instantly. Refine these auras. At this time, all around David, cyclones were spinning rapidly, and even the house where David was located was wrapped in a faint white mist. Lin Tianhu, who was protecting the law outside, looked at the house wrapped in mist and couldn't help but be amazed. Just when David was breaking through, in the Swanya Valley in the southwest, thousands of kilometers away, 7 or 8 people were sitting in the hall. No matter whether this person is male or female, old or young. This person is Qian Feng, the owner of Swanya Valley, and no one knows his true identity. Gu Master, the old boy has been gone for a few days now, but I can't contact him now. Shouldn't this guy run away with the medicinal materials for us in Swanya Valley? One of them spoke up. Impossible, he doesn't dare to give him a few courage, although he doesn't confuse that guy with lust, but he hasn't had the courage to betray the Valley Master. Someone started to object. Then why can't we get in touch? After such a question, the scene fell into silence in an instant, because no one could explain it. Bohu is dead. Qian Feng, the leader, opened his mouth, and took out a centipede that was more than 10 centimeters long from the black pottery pot on the side. The puzzling worm has died, proving that he is no longer alive. Qian Feng threw the centipede on the ground and said lightly. In Swanya Valley, everyone has gu worms. These gu worms are paired with a male and a female. The female gu worm will be put into the human body, and the male worm will be adopted in the money. In Feng's black pottery pot, because as long as one of these gu worms dies, the other one will die together no matter where it is, so Qian Feng used this method to control the entire Swanya Valley. If someone dares to betray him, he can kill the gu worm in his hand, and the gu worm on the betrayal person will also die, and the betrayal person will die along with it. However, if the person with the gu worms dies, the gu worms in Qian Feng's hands will die along with them. Everyone was surprised when they saw that gu worm. Although there are also martial arts masters in Jiangbei province, who has the ability to kill them. Could it be that the Zhang family turned against the water? After getting the medicine pill, they didn't want to provide us with medicinal materials, so they killed people. Someone guessed. Impossible, the owner of the valley has explained that only after getting the medicinal materials, will the Zhang family refine the life-sustaining pill, and a Zhang family would not dare to oppose our Swanya Valley. Objections were raised. Could it be Yaoang's mansion? You must know that it is the territory of Yaoang's mansion, and the people of Yaoang's mansion have always claimed to be famous and upright, and they look down on us who are left and right. Now that our people are on their territory, how can they just sit back and ignore it? One of the grey-haired old men frowned deeply. 3 elders, we have no grievances or enmity with the Yaoang mansion. Although they don't like our style, they have been at peace with each other for so many years. Besides, it is not the first time for our people to go to Jiangbei. Can't you see it? Someone asked the grey-haired old man. It's hard to say. Who knows what the Yaoang's mansion is going to do? In Jiangbei, besides Yaoang's mansion, who else can kill him? Just those so-called martial arts masters? A bunch of reckless men. The grey-haired old man snorted coldly, obviously disdain for martial artists. Okay, don't be arguing anymore, you'll know if you send someone to inquire about it. If it's really the Yaoangfu that does it, then don't blame us for being rude. Qianfeng said in a cold voice. In Tianfeng town, Jiangbei province, there is a mansion covering an area of thousands of square meters. This is the Medicine King's mansion. There are hundreds of medicine shops around the Medicine King's mansion, and these medicine shops sell not medicinal pills, but medicinal dregs. In the provincial capital are hot goods. Palace Master, there have been a lot of these kinds of small return pills in Yunchange recently. I have sent someone to study the ingredients carefully, as well as the refining method, and even the efficacy of the medicine has been tested. This kind of pill can be said to be a magic medicine. The butler of Medicine King's mansion walked into the palace lord's room with a small return pill and said, "Old Chu, you've been refining alchemy all your life, and you've never heard of you saying that someone's elixirs are magic medicines. Let's hear it." Sun Simiao, the head of the Yaoang mansion, took a sip of tea and asked lightly, "Palace Master, this medicine pill can strengthen the body, cure all kinds of diseases, and has a very significant effect on men. Compared with our Zisui pill, the effect of Qianggu pill is much stronger. The detection is just some very common medicinal materials, and the cost is very low, even I can't see the refining method. If our medicinal herbs can also be made from common medicinal materials, then the profit is very considerable." The butler explained carefully. "Oh? Is there such a thing?" Sun Simiao's eyes lit up, and he seemed very interested. "Then you go to investigate and see who made this medicine pill. I don't even know that there are still people in Jiangbei province who can make it. Refine this elixir." "Got it." The butler nodded. But just as the housekeeper was about to leave, Sun Simiao called the housekeeper to an instant. "By the way, are all the herbs in the Zhang family ready? Let them hurry up and settle the balance." The housekeeper asked with a puzzled face, "Palace Master, our medicinal materials are already in short supply, why would you agree to sell them to the Zhang family? There is someone in the Zhang family's capital, this is the message, you don't need to ask more about other things." Sun Simiao waved his hand and told the housekeeper to leave. The provincial capital, in a small hotel. Although it has been several days since David killed Zhang Zhengzhong and that Master Buhuo, but the heat is still unabated, and everyone is still discussing this matter after dinner. You didn't see it at all, that David was simply an immortal method. The Zhang family knelt down at the time, not to mention how embarrassed he was, and he was beaten to death by a palm. And the guy with the immortal style and the bones, who looks sanctimonious, but is a wizard, with several little devils on his body, but David swallowed them all in one bite. Then David is young, and now I'm afraid that the entire provincial capital is unmatched. At that time, the Wu family wanted to make someone the leader of the alliance, but they didn't agree. If it was on me, I would have agreed. This is martial arts. Alliance leader, what a bull. You don't know, I heard that David was the reincarnation of an immortal. At that time, on the ring, several immortals descended to earth to protect David. In front of a table, several young people were drinking and talking about the situation in the ring a few days ago. In fact, most people have not seen the situation at the scene, it is just hearsay, but this rumor is getting more and more mysterious. The speaker had no intention of listening, and at a nearby dining table, a man in a robe was eating with his head lowered, but at this time this man put his ears up and listened to the discussions of the young people next door. "Brother, what did you just say? It's a little devil and an immortal, it's really mysterious." The man in the robe walked to the next door with a wine glass and asked several young people who were talking about it. Several young people looked up, and one of them said, "Aren't you from the provincial capital?" The man in the robe shook his head. I'm from the southwest, and I'm here to do business. That's no wonder, you don't know about such a big thing. Let me tell you, a big incident happened in our provincial capital recently. A young handsome man named David, just in his 20s, directly killed an internal force Grandmaster, and there is a person named. What is the name of Master Bohuo, who was also killed? I heard that that person is from the southwest of you. One of the young men explained. When the man in the robe heard this, a cold light flashed in his eyes, but it was only fleeting, and then he smiled slightly. This David is really powerful, he can even defeat the master of internal strength. I don't know where he lives. What? Do you want to ask him to discuss? But I tell you, don't waste it. They closed their doors and thanked guests, and no one was seen. Many patriarchs and curators went to see them and were welcomed back. Now that David is there, where does the Jiang family live in the villa? A young man pointed in the direction of Jiang's villa and said. The robe man suddenly exuded a cold glow, glanced at the location of the Jiang family villa, turned around and left. Outside the Jiang family villa, Lin Tianhu has been guarding for several days, because he is afraid that someone will disturb him. Qi Feng has sent hundreds of people to patrol the Jiang family villa without interruption. Lin Tianhu also mobilized hundreds of people from Horindal to surround the entire Jiang family villa. I don't know if the palace master has broken through. Lin Tianhu looked at the white mist rising from David's room from a distance, thinking in his heart. At this time, on the street not far from the Jiang's villa, the man in the robe frowned, staring at the direction of the Jiang's villa, looking at the white mist condensing over the villa. The man in the robe murmured. He said to himself, sure enough, Taoism is not shallow, no wonder he was able to kill that old boy who is not confused. After speaking, the man in the robe stepped out one step, and the whole person disappeared in place in an instant, and appeared in front of the villa in the next second. Who are you? When the guard outside the villa saw someone suddenly appear, he hurriedly raised his guard and asked. The man in the robe didn't say a word, and as soon as he raised his hand, he threw the guard away. Seeing this, the other guards picked up their weapons and rushed over, but Lin Tianhu hurried over when he heard the movement. When Lin Tianhu arrived, dozens of guards had already surrounded the robed man outside the villa. Lin Tianhu looked at the silent guard on the ground, his face suddenly gloomy. Who are you? The man in the robe swept Lin Tianhu a glance, and said lightly, let the man named David come out and die and kill my Suanyuegu. How could he still be allowed to live in the world? People from Suanya Valley. Lin Tianhu's brows furrowed even more deeply. He had seen the ability of Master Bohuo. These people are all warlocks, and they are all powerful in Taoism. Can't stand it. Turning his eyes slightly, Lin Tianhu said to the man in the robe, you can find Mr. Chen, report your name first, and I'll report it immediately. You must know that there are countless people who come to Mr. Chen to discuss, and even those who want to kill him. More, but Mr. Chen doesn't kill the unknown. Humph, how could I be a nameless person, Suanya Valley's left inspector, come to take David's head today? The man in the robe snorted coldly, and a terrifying aura erupted from his body instantly. Wait a minute, I'll inform you right away. Lin Tianhu turned around and walked back to the villa. As soon as he entered the villa, Lin Tianhu anxiously took out his phone. At this time, David was cultivating, and he couldn't disturb him at all, so he would not inform David, but took out his phone and called Qi Feng. Lin Tianhu knows how much he weighs and how many tails he has. With his own strength and these guards, he may not be able to stop the people from Suanya Valley. If Qi Feng is bringing people over, they might be able to take Suanya Valley together. People to block it. After receiving the call from Lin Tianhu, Qi Feng did not dare to hesitate at all, and hurriedly rushed to the Jiang family villa, and also informed Li Shaoyi by the way. If the critical moment comes, then let Li Shaoyi use the official to suppress it. Being able to procrastinate for a while is a while. The left inspector of Suanya Valley waited for a while. Seeing that Lin Tianhu hadn't come out, his brows could not help wrinkling. Looking at the surging aura in the villa, the left inspector of Swanya Valley knew that David had not moved at all. Damn, dare to lie to me! Swanya Valley's left patrol roared angrily. He finally knew that this was Lin Tianhu's plan to slow down his troops. After an angry shout, Swanya Valley's left inspector charged directly towards the villa, not caring about the surrounding guards at all. Stop him! At this time, Lin Tianhu's whole body bulged out, and the blue veins on his face bulged. He used up all his strength. Facing the people in Swanya Valley, Lin Tianhu didn't dare to be careless. Act recklessly. Swanya Valley's left patrol snorted coldly, and with a light wave of his palm, he directly knocked Lin Tianhu out, as easily as slapping a mosquito. Lin Tianhu's body fell heavily to the ground, and a mouthful of blood spurted out. Never let him rush into the villa and disturb Mr. Chen. Lin Tianhu shouted with all his strength. Dozens of guards, with a cold glow in their eyes, look at death as if at home. These guards are all people from Chifengtang, they are all strictly selected, and all of them are extremely loyal. But just when the guards were about to attack the Swanya Valley left patrolman, Chifeng brought people there. There were hundreds of people and surrounded the Swanyuego left patrolman for several times. Chifeng glanced at the injured Lin Tianhu. With a bit of concern on his face, he asked, "Are you all right?" "It's okay, I can't die," Lin Tianhu said with a look of shame. Chifeng turned her head and glared at the Swanya Valley left patroller, and said in a cold voice, "You dare to come to seek revenge alone, you really don't take my Chifengtang in your eyes." "Humph, it's just a bunch of reckless men. In my eyes, you are just ants, how can you get into my eyes?" Swanya Valley's left patrol sneered, and the whole person attacked Chifeng in an instant. The speed of Swanya Valley's left patroller was so fast that Chifeng almost didn't respond at all, so he slapped Swanyuegu's left patroller and flew out. In front of the Swanya Valley left inspector, the dignified Master Neijin did not even have the slightest strength to fight back. Chifeng, seeing this, Lin Tianhu wanted to get up with difficulty. He went over to take a look at Chifeng, but unfortunately he couldn't get up at all at this time. "Bold madman, this is the provincial capital. If you dare to hurt people, don't you have a king's law in your eyes?" Li Xiaoyi came with the people from the Guardian Pavilion. Because he was afraid that Sonia would be worried, Li Xiaoyi did not inform Gu Linger. If Gu Linger knew about it, then Sonia would definitely know too. "Go away," Swanya Valley's left inspector glanced at Li Xiaoyi, "the Guardian Pavilion is a piece of SHT in my eyes. If you don't want to die, go away." Li Xiaoyi was stunned for a moment, his face was red and white, embarrassed. "Come together, kill him." Seeing that the other party is not afraid of the Dharma Protector Pavilion at all, Chifeng can only use the advantage of the number of people to stop the left patrol of Swanya Valley. Kill! Hundreds of people from Chifengtang, armed with weapons, rushed towards the left patrol of Swanya Valley. Facing the attack of hundreds of people, Swanya Valley's left inspector raised the corner of his mouth, his face full of disdain. "Hiding the sky and crossing the sea." The left inspector of Swanya Valley suddenly shouted, and with a wave of his robe, the whole sky suddenly turned dark, and the billowing black mist poured out from under the robe of the left inspector of Swanya Valley, covering the sky immediately. "Day, you can't see your fingers." This time, the people in Chifengtang were in chaos, and they couldn't see the direction at all, and then there were screams of screams, and each scream represented that a person in Chifengtang suffered an accident. "Ha ha ha, ha ha ha, in my formation, I am the master, and I will capture it before I can." That Swanya Valley left inspector suddenly burst into laughter, the laughter was extremely terrifying. Chifeng listened to the screams of her subordinates, her heart was extremely painful. She knew that if this continued, her own people would die sooner or later, but she couldn't order a retreat, and now she could only use her subordinates' lives to delay time for David. Chifeng's heart is full of torment. These subordinates have followed her faithfully for many years, and they died tragically like this, and Chifeng's eyes became red. Mr. Chen, wake up soon. Lin Tianhu looked at Chifeng like that, and felt distressed, roaring mournfully. Lin Tianhu, even if he dies, he can't let him rush into the villa, I'll go first. After Chifeng finished speaking, she rushed into the thick black mist. Chifeng, Lin Tianhu clenched his fists tightly and thumped the ground hard, his eyes filled with tears. He likes Chifeng, he hasn't confessed to Chifeng yet, but soon Chifeng will leave forever. The screams were still ringing, and each scream deeply hurt Lin Tianhu's heart, because he didn't know which scream was from Chifeng. Li Xiaoyi took the people from the protector pavilion and looked at him in a daze. With such a method, even if Li Xiaoyi wanted to help, he would not be able to help at all. Rumbling. Suddenly, there was a sound of thunder, and then the white mist in the house where David was located suddenly became extremely dense, and then merged into a giant sword, hitting the black mist directly. One black and one white fog collided together. The black fog collapsed with a single blow, and disappeared without a trace in an instant. The sky became brighter. At this time, the ground was already full of people from Chifengtang. Fewer than 10. And Chifeng was holding a long sword with scars all over his body, and he was glaring at the left inspector of Suanya Valley in front of him. Suanya Valley's left inspector ignored Chifeng's anger, but looked at the house wrapped in white mist with frightened eyes. Whoa, whoa! A burst of cracking sounded, and the roof of the room collapsed instantly. I saw that David was wrapped in a faint spiritual energy, and the whole person was suspended in the air, as if a fairy had descended. Just your crooked way, dare to claim to be the master. David's eyes were full of indifference, he waved his big hand gently, and a cloud of white mist instantly wrapped the left patroller of Suanya Valley. Everyone only saw the Suanya Valley left patrolling struggling desperately in the white fog, as if it was very painful. Suddenly, Suanya Valley's left inspector's body stopped moving, as if he was already dead. Just when Lin Tianhu and Chifeng were overjoyed, the white mist that enveloped Suanya Valley's left patroller's body began to slowly seep into each other's body. Immediately afterwards, the left patrol officer of Suanya Valley suddenly opened his eyes, and his body instantly rose into the air, facing David in mid-air. Ha ha ha, how can you hurt me with just your means, but the abundant spiritual power on your body is just for me. After Suanya Valley's left patroller finished speaking, he pushed his palms forward suddenly, and a huge suction force was sucked towards David. David's body seems to be in a huge vortex, and it may be engulfed at any time. Soon, David felt that the spiritual power in his body was passing by rapidly, and all of it was absorbed by the Suanya Valley left inspector. Ha ha ha, ha ha ha, what a pure and abundant spiritual power! When I drain the spiritual power from you, I will bring you to Suanya Valley to fall. The left patrol officer of Suanya Valley laughed loudly, his expression extremely wild. Feeling the loss of spiritual power, David was not in a hurry, the corner of his mouth raised slightly and he smiled. The technique used by the Suanya Valley left patrol is similar to that of the Daoist exterminating star absorbing technique. These two techniques should be from the same vein, but the Suanya Valley left patrol is more advanced. You can still laugh at this time? I have to admire your courage. Seeing David, the left inspector of Suanya Valley didn't panic, and he laughed, and he was a little admired, but this did not make him have the slightest pity for David, his thoughts became more and more attractive. Spiritual power is draining faster and faster. Lin Tianhu and Chifeng below looked at David surrounded by a swirling black mist, their faces suddenly became extremely ugly, and their hearts were extremely anxious, but at this time they seemed to have no choice. Ha ha ha, I'm so happy, so happy, so much spiritual power will definitely improve my strength by a big step. When the time comes, I will be the elder of Suanya Valley. Suanya Valley's left patrol envoy is getting more and more proud. Have you not had enough? David asked calmly. Enough? How is it possible, I want to absorb all your spiritual power. Swanyu Valley's left inspector sneered, his eyes full of pride. Insatiable greed, you will end up with nothing. David shook his head slightly, and after a sneer, the concentration technique in his Danshan suddenly started to run rapidly. The huge suction force immediately began to absorb the lost spiritual power back. Swanyu Valley's left inspector was complacent when he suddenly discovered that the spiritual power in his body began to drain outwards. He was shocked and turned pale in shock. Then he looked at David, his eyes were full of inconceivable. How could this be? Swanyu Valley's left inspector exerted his technique to the extreme, but the huge suction on the opposite side was like a vast sea. No matter how hard he struggled, he couldn't resist it. No, stop. Swanyu Valley's left inspector felt that the opportunity for his body's spiritual power was about to be sucked away. Why do you want to stop? Such good cultivation resources are rare for me. Since you delivered them to your door, how can I not accept them? David sneered, and the speed of the concentrated heart art speeded up again. What? Swanyu Valley's left patrolling screamed, and then the whole person began to age at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the end, after the Swanyu Valley left inspector turned into a dry corpse, David stopped and the corpse of the Swanyu Valley left inspector fell directly to the ground. Looking at Swanyu Valley's left patroller who had turned into a mummified corpse on the ground, Li Shaoyi, the pavilion master of the Dharma Protector Pavilion, was immediately surprised. He had never seen such a situation before. At this time, his eyes were wide open, and he finally understood why he was in Hong Kong. Cheng, whether it is Gu Wenchen or Mayor Ling Zhenchuan, they all respect David so much. This is simply a method of immortals, even a master of internal strength has never been able to do this step. At this time, Li Shaoyi suddenly had a bold idea in his heart. David's body was in front of Lin Tianhu and Chifeng in an instant, and with a wave of his hand, a cloud of spiritual energy instantly wrapped the two of them. Thank you, Mr. Chen. Chifeng and Lin Tianhu were overjoyed and followed David to thank him. David did not speak, but glanced at the corpses on the ground. These people died to protect him. David's eyes burst with murderous intent, he looked towards the southwest, and said in a cold voice, Swanyu, I will let you all repay this blood debt. Qian Feng, the owner of Swanyu Valley thousands of kilometers away, was sitting on a chair, opened the black pottery pot beside him, and fed the goo worms inside. Suddenly, his body shook and his brows furrowed tightly. At this moment, a goo worm seemed to be stimulated, and it rushed up in an instant, biting Qian Feng's finger firmly. A drop of blood dripped into the clay pot, and was instantly sucked up by those goo worms. And the goo worm that bit Qian Feng, after twisting violently a few times, stopped instantly and died. Die again. Qian Feng was stunned for a moment, and looked in the direction of Jiang Bei with a gloomy face. Jiang Bei is going to change. After Qian Feng finished speaking, a cloud of black mist instantly enveloped his body, and the next second his body disappeared. Outside the Zhang family villa at this time, Chifeng has already sent someone to clean up the scene, but with so many dead men, Chifeng is in a bad mood. Lin Tianhu, go and accompany Chifeng to relax, I'll go see Sonia and the others. David has been practicing for several days, but he hasn't seen Sonia in the past few days, for fear that Sonia will worry about herself. Yet. Lin Tianhu nodded, Mr. Chen, the past few days of your retreat, the owner of the Iron Gate Pavilion and the head of the Wu family have come here, especially the owner of the Iron Gate Pavilion, who comes almost every day. Well, I see. David knew that the owner of the Ximen Pavilion must have come to apologize, for fear that he would hate the Ximen Pavilion. Chifeng and Lin Tianhu left, and Li Shaoyi, who had been by the side, walked over to David at this time. Ge Master Li, thank you for your help this time. David said to Li Shaoyi. Li Shaoyi's face turned red, his face full of embarrassment. He came here and didn't help anything, he just stood there, and his subordinates of the Dharma Protector didn't even hurt their fur. Mr. Chen, ashamed, I actually didn't do anything. Li Xiaoyi said embarrassedly, and his name for David has changed. You can come here, even if you are helping me. David didn't blame Li Xiaoyi for not taking action. After all, facing a warlock like the left patrol officer of Swanya Valley, Li Xiaoyi's actions with the Dharma Protector Pavilion were also dead in vain. Mr. Chen, I have an immature idea. I hope that Mr. Chen can join the Dharma Protector Pavilion. I will definitely arrange a position for Mr. Chen as the deputy head of the pavilion. Li Xiaoyi intends to pull David into the Dharma Protector Pavilion. If there are people like David in the Dharma Guardian Pavilion, the status of the Dharma Guardian Pavilion will be greatly improved in the future. Even those martial arts families will not dare to look down on the Dharma Guardian Pavilion. I still have a lot of things to do, thank Pavilion Master Li for your kindness. David shook his head. He would not join the Dharma Protector Pavilion. After all, this official organization has too many rules. Mr. Chen, if you think your position is low, I can give you the position of the Pavilion Master. I will be the deputy pavilion owner and assist you. Li Xiaoyi said hurriedly. David shook his head, Master Li has misunderstood. I do have a lot of private matters to deal with, and I can't join your law-protecting pavilion, but if Master Li needs help with anything, I can help. When Li Xiaoyi heard this, he was instantly delighted, then thank you Mr. Chen first. If you use my Dharma Protector Pavilion, I will be obliged to do so. After chatting with Li Xiaoyi for a while, David left and went directly to Gulinger's residence. For the past few days, Sonia has been living with Gulinger. After arriving at the place, David found that the door was locked, and the two were not at home, so he made a phone call. After knowing the location of the two, David went directly to find them. It turns out that these few days, Gulinger and Sonia have been shopping every day, and today is no exception, they are hanging out in a market. David. After Sonia saw David, she waved her hand vigorously. David hurried over, hugged Sonia, and turned around. If you two always throw dog food in front of me, I'll leave. Gulinger rolled his eyes from the side. You should also find a boyfriend, so you can also sprinkle dog food. Sonia said with a smile. Humph, I'm not looking for them. They are all rough people. It would be fine if I could find someone like David. Gulinger blurted out and made his debut. After Gulinger finished speaking, she felt that she had said something wrong, and her face turned red. Before she knew it, she had already regarded David as her standard for men. Seeing Gulinger blushing, Sonia giggled and said, if you like him so much, wouldn't it be all right for both of us to be his girlfriends? Gulinger's face turned even redder when she heard it, and she glared at Sonia, don't talk nonsense, then don't kill him. Listening to Sonia's words, David felt speechless for a while and could only smile bitterly. What are you laughing at? I'm just joking, you won't take it seriously, will you? Seeing David smiling, Sonia questioned David directly. I'll listen to you. David didn't answer Sonia's words directly, but cleverly avoided it, which made Sonia very satisfied. Sure enough, after hearing what David said, Sonia smiled with satisfaction, go, I'll take you around. The three of them were strolling in the market. Because they had never visited the market in the provincial capital, David felt a little fresh. The market is very big, and there are all kinds of things in it, and there are places to play and play. Just when the three of them walked to a street intersection, they saw a group of people around there, shouting loudly, not knowing what they were doing.